I love how I live in New Zealand, the land of milk, and I still drink the crappiest milk that there is. Today I'm going to just be going over all the books that I read recently, aka in 2019. It is May currently, so I've only read I think 14 books, so that Goodreads goal is a little behind. Just a smidge. Just a smidge. But you know what? I believe in myself. I can do this. I believe. Oh no, that was a lie. I've read 12 books this year. No, I've read 13. I haven't added one of them to Goodreads yet. Okay. Anyway. Okay. Moving on. So I'm just gonna give you like the rundown of all the books. It is actually quite a lot of books to go through, so it's gonna be quick and snappy, and I apologise if it's not enough info for you, but that's what you get when you don't do one of these videos ever. Okay, so the first book I read this year was written by my favourite author, the one, the only Patrick Ness. It was Release, and oh my goodness, this is an amazing, amazing, amazing book. Amazing. 4 out of 5 stars, and that's a good rating. 5 out of 5 literally like makes me want to die and change my entire life's purpose. So 4 out of 5 stars. Yes, read me please. This book is about, it follows a boy called, what's his name? Give me a second. Adam is his name. So Adam, it follows him on the day that he comes out to his parents, and his parents are super duper religious. His dad is the pastor at a church, and so they are very conservative, very careful. Like, the brother has never had sex because abstinence only education type conservative, and he's going to come out as gay in this book, which was beautiful. So the family is very super duper conservative, and he has to come out to them over the period of this book. There's also like a party he's got to go to with a guy that he likes, and all this drama. It's so beautifully written. Just like, you know, Patrick Ness, he always nails it. It's just perfect. The only bad Patrick Ness book I've ever read was The Rest of Us Just Live Here, and I'm even doubting myself as to whether that was actually bad or whether I was just not in the mood to read. So yes, just read me. It's beautiful. Also this cover. Can we just take a moment and look at this design? Okay, I recreated this on like my 3rd day in class this year because we were learning about like just the basics of Photoshop and all those other programs, and I just like, I had finished this book like the night before, and it was amazing, and I just needed to recreate the cover, so I like took a photo and I like did all the things, and oh, it's actually hard to do this, but oh, it's beautiful. The book also follows another story with a girl who has died in some way, and it's about her coming to terms with that, I think, and the reasons that she died, and that plotline wasn't as good. It was a lot, I think Patrick Ness was trying to do something different, which I applaud him for. It was just 2 steps behind being good. It just wasn't quite there. I can understand, like, theoretically it was a really good story. Theoretically I liked it. But in practice, not so much. I kind of just skimmed over those bits. Oh, I found a bookmark. I skimmed over those bits. They weren't amazing. Towards the end they got good though. They were also a bit confusing. I just didn't understand the dare, and I don't know whether that's just because I'm an idiot or I don't know. But yeah, just read that book. It was beautiful. Beautiful, 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 and I am 9 minutes in and I've just been talking about this book, so I'm going to continue on to the next book, which was a reread. This was A Court of Mist and Fury, and I'm currently rereading my rereading of it. It was good, you know, it's A Court of Mist and Fury, it's good, you know. I keep rereading this book, telling myself I'm gonna read A Court of Wings and Ruin, but I never get round to it. I'll finish the book and I'll get like 10 pages into A Court of Wings and Ruin and be like, fuck this, I hate it, and leave. So I'm currently rereading A Court of Mist and Fury, and I previously reread A Court of Mist and Fury, so I've done it twice this year. I haven't finished it this time, but I don't know what I'm saying. Don't listen to me. Thoughts. I don't really think I need to give my thoughts on this. It's Sarah J Maas. You've all heard of her. She's brilliant. This book is probably my favourite in the Court of Thorns and Roses series, because obviously I haven't read A Court of Wings and Ruin because I can't get through it, and A Court of Thorns and Roses, it was good. It was good, it was exciting, but A Court of Mist and Fury is like next level, so yeah, read A Court of Mist and Fury if you want to. I don't know, maybe don't pick up A Court of Wings and Ruin, don't get yourself hyped for it, just move on. Though you probably can't if you've gotten to the ending. So moving on from A Court of Mist and Fury, the next book I've read was First We Make the Beast Beautiful. I can't remember who this was by. Give me a second. By Sarah Wilson. She's some sort of TV personality. I'm not entirely sure what she does, but she's famous. And it's kind of a memoir, kind of a self-help book. But I'm gonna have to go out there and say it was like a mixture between 2 and 1 stars. I want to give it 1.5, but then I feel like that's too generous, but I don't want to give it 1 because it wasn't complete trash. Actually, I'm going to give it 1 because it was kind of complete trash. It was just very poorly edited. Very, very poorly edited. Horrible research skills. Like, it was a memoir, but then she was bringing in all of these and then she was like bringing in all of these like references and things to studies, but they weren't properly like thought out. It was kind of like, oh yeah, in this study, oh yeah, my guru friend said, oh, why do I have the hiccups? This isn't fair. My guru friend said that you can do this, and it was just very privileged advice as well. I was sitting there kind of like, you're writing your memoir like a self-help book and it's not working. It just makes you come off as a bit pompous, not gonna lie. And it also didn't encourage positive methods of recovery from anxiety, and at one point she actually went out and said that anxiety is just a label for a overactive like feeling, and that it's not actually a disorder, and that people basically are making it up and it's in their brains, but it's fine. And then she went and followed it, but it's fine because sometimes having a label helps you deal with it, and it's like, honey, no sweetie, no. So not the best. I would not recommend that one. I loved the cover, I loved the title, I loved the Chinese proverbs, but anything she actually wrote made me want to slap her. So no, just 1 out of 5 stars. We don't go there, we don't talk about her, she doesn't exist, she's not real. So then I needed something light and easy to get me over that hump of that horrible, horrible book. I don't think I even finished it. I think I got like 50 pages away from the end and I was like, I'm out. So I went instead and I read Death Note, which is iconic. It's beautiful. We all know, we all love it. 4 out of 5 stars. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I feel like I need to give a review, but there's not much to say. If you've seen the first episode of Death Note on TV, it's the exact same thing but in a graphic novel. There's a few extra lines and that's kind of it, you know, it's not very different, but oh well. I'm gonna keep reading that series to get to the end because there's actually more graphic novels after the end of the TV series, which I am so excited to read because I've just heard bits about them and it just sounds amazing. Like, light becomes, oh no, I'm not even gonna go there, just yeah, I'm excited to read the next Death Note. the Death Notes that weren't made into films. So yay. And then I was like, so there was a lot of discussion at the time about a certain book that I had come across. I was finding all the discussion about it at a certain time about this book, and I decided that I would give it a go. And that is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Now, I am trash for a good rom-com, romance novel, whatever you want to call it. I liked it, I'm not gonna lie, but I will admit that there is problems. If you want to find out about the problems, go and watch Insane Reader's video on it, because he gets it perfect, he gets it perfect. But I think if you're old enough to read it, go ahead and read it. I wouldn't recommend it if you're under 18 or just haven't had that much relationship experience, just because it's got some very unhealthy relationships very subtly put in. You don't even notice it while you're reading it, and then you sort of think back and you go, oh, no. Actually, it's not subtle in Ugly Love. In other books like November 9, she manages to weave it in a bit more and not be as like on the nose, but yeah, oof. It was fun though, so I don't know whether to give it a 2 stars because it's problematic or a 3 stars because I enjoyed it. I don't want to give it a 4 stars because even though I enjoyed it enough to give it a 4 stars, I know it's problematic and I don't want to encourage that, and I would not recommend going out and buying it. I know Colleen Hoover has addressed some of the issues in the book. She has addressed some of the issues in her writing in general, because a lot of her books have problematic themes and characters and relationships. But just read with caution, read knowing what you're getting into, do a bit of research before you read it. It is fun, it is lighthearted, but you vote with your feet, and by reading the book you're voting for it. So just remember that before you pick it up. Yeah. So after Ugly Love, I still wanted a contemporary. I was still in that mood for something a bit like easier to read. So I made the very poor decision of picking up Winter Girls. I wanted something with a bit more depth because Ugly Love didn't have very much depth. So I thought, oh, a story about mental health. That would be great to read. And it took me forever to read because it was so dark. It is so dark. Winter Girls covers anorexia and depression, suicide, all that fun stuff. And the writing style is really amazing in the way that it pulls you in, but it also gives you all the emotions that those characters are holding. And they are going through very intense situations, so it took me a very long time to read, months to read, because I could only get through 1, 2, 3 chapters at a time. I ended up stopping reading the actual book because reading the physical book was too harming mentally on myself, so I got the audiobook out and then I finished it a lot faster. But yes. It's so amazing though. This is a 5 out of 5 star read. It's amazing. Again though, read with caution. If you have any at all mental issues, tread with absolute caution. Talk about it with your friends while you're reading it. I don't think that if you've got mental health issues you shouldn't go ahead and read this type of thing, because you're gonna do it anyway. But don't read it to trigger yourself. Read it telling someone you're going to read it because you're interested in the subject matter and fascinated by the story, and talk to them while you're reading it. Talk about it, say this is how this bit made me feel, and use it as a conversation starter if you're going to read it. I feel like the last two books I've just been warning and telling you what to do and how to read, but both of those books needed some conversation. But yeah, I did really love the relationship between Leah and Cassie. It was really beautiful. Very emotional. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. Also, if you're interested in writing, read this book, because the way that she uses the language to communicate, oh, it's so amazing. So then after those two very books, I was like, okay, I need a bit of lightheartedness in my life. And so I went to where I always go when I need some lighthearted literature in my life, Rick Riordan, and I reread The Hammer of Thor, which was enjoyable as usual. It was sort of between a 3 and a 4 stars. It was quite good. It follows the same formula that Rick Riordan always follows, so if you've read one of his books before, it's the same, but you know, it's Rick Riordan. We all know what he's like. He's brilliant. If you don't know what he's like, get onto it. Read some Percy Jackson, please. Don't sit there and say, hey, I've watched the movie, it's fine. No. Just, we don't talk about the movie if we've actually read the book, okay? I do really love this series. I think it's amazing. I can see Rick Riordan's passion for the subject matter coming through. I think we kind of lost that in Heroes of Olympus. You couldn't really feel his passion for the stories coming through. And I was a bit worried that I was kind of falling out of love with Rick Riordan and moving on, but this series has restored my faith in him. He's constantly talked since Percy Jackson being released about his fascination with Norse mythology, and you can really see his understanding and his love for it come through. It also contains a very diverse cast of characters. This is the book in the series where, I'm gonna get this wrong, it's like I'm a Gen Zer, I should know this. It involves gender fluid, that's what it is. It contains a gender fluid character and it contains a Muslim character, but both those characters aren't forced in the way that they're included. It's not like, hey, look, I've got a Muslim character, or hey, look, I've got a gender fluid character. It's just kind of like these people are people. It's addressed how it would be in life, really. Like, they have to explain themselves because generally people don't instantly understand like they would with Christianity or with being a straight person or gay even. Like, gay's kind of accepted now and you don't really ask questions, but with gender fluid you do. And so the questions were asked that needed to be asked by the characters, but it didn't force the issue. And it was instantly accepted by the other characters, and I just loved the way it just showed healthy relationships with people who are slightly different to yourself, and I think that's amazing in a children's book, and we should be supporting that type of writing because it just means that kids are going to grow up with these things just being in their brain and being part of their psyche because they read it in a book. And that's one of the beauties of reading, is you get introduced to new people, new characters, and he's brought it into a children's book, which I think is amazing. And it's risky. It's really risky bringing in characters like that, and when you're such a high profile author, to do that means a lot of people are going to stop reading your books. It's quite scary. I think we need to applaud him for doing that, because in his other books he has been a bit social justice, and he talked about, like, particularly in Percy Jackson, there was the whole plotline with Pan and global warming and things like that. But this is different. I think we all know that global warming is a thing, and so it's not a big deal when it's brought into a kid's book, whereas this is actually quite significant. So yes, I'm very happy with this book because it doesn't sacrifice quality. It's just perfect. I've been talking way too long on this, but it's just great. So I was still in the mood for a children's book. I've been in the mood for a children's book for a while. So then after reading Hammer of Thor, I went on to the Princess Diaries series, and I'm currently on the third one. So I've read the first and the second, and I'm currently reading the third one. And they're just so much fun. If you've watched the movie, read the books, because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot more comedic. There's lots of different things, like the dad has testicular cancer. He's not dead, unlike in the movie, which is why he can't have another ear, which is why Mia is told that she's now the princess. So there's that whole thing and it's just hilarious. Like she'll just bring it up all the time and be like, just because my dad lost one of his testicles and blah, 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 and you're like, like right back to like primary school laughing at like poo jokes. It's great. And like Grandmere is really like this formidable character. She's not Julie Andrews, I can tell you that. She's covered in Chanel number 5 and she like walks around like she owns the place, and she's got her eyebrows tattooed on, and she's very intense and hard to deal with and dramatic, and it's just, it's a good time. It was a good reread because I read these, like I originally read the Princess Diaries when I was like 14, and I think a lot of it went over my head. I think I was just kind of reading them like, ooh, princesses, yes. I don't know if I was too old at 14 to be reading princesses like that, but yeah. But I really love the relationship between Lily and Mia. It's a lot more complicated than I remember, and I think it's realistic to how kids in that age group would actually interact. I think in a lot of children's books there's a lot of mature interaction which doesn't really happen, like because kids get into scraps over little things and that's kind of what happens, and it's I love it. I just love it. It's wholesome. And then the most recent book I have finished was They Both Die in the End by Adam Silvera. This was my first ever Adam Silvera novel, and boy am I hooked. I knew he was like one of those authors that's kind of put in like the depressing authors category with like John Green and all of that. So I was a bit like, oh no, am I going to get another boy and girl combo go off and one of them falls in love with the best friend sitting on the side going, good job guys. Yeah, but it's not anything like that. It's amazing. It's beautifully written. So They Both Die at the End is about a thing called Deathcast. So what Deathcast is you get a call 24 hours before you die, or the midnight before you die. I can't remember what exactly. So these two people get a call, so you get introduced to these two characters, and then they meet over an app, which is like the Last Day app, where it's kind of like Tinder, but you can meet like last friends. So they meet over this app and it's just really beautiful. They go and they try and live their lives to the fullest, and one of them has always lived conservatively, being very afraid that he's going to die, and the other person really helps drag him out from that, and he learns over the book to figure out what his personality is, and he really finds himself over the story, and it's just brilliant. Like, read it, it's brilliant. It's beautifully written. Okay, and so then there's 2 more books that I'm going to discuss, which are books that I'm currently reading. So the first one is Notes on Nationalism by George Orwell. This is just a little one of those penguin books. So in this, I haven't actually read, it's a collection of 3 essays by George Orwell. I read the second one and the last one. So I read Anti-Semitism in Britain and The Fighting Spirit. No, The Sporting Spirit. But I haven't read Notes on Nationalism yet, which is the first essay. Anti-Semitism in Britain was fascinating. Fascinating. I really encourage you to read this and think about it in terms of internet culture, and it's just fascinating. I kind of don't want to say any more, just go and read it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 stars once I've finished it. The Sporting Spirit, that essay wasn't as good. I don't know, it's just kind of wasn't up my alley. It's about, he's comparing sport to warfare and the attitudes that we have in sport and how they're very racist, and how we can do horrible things in the name of sport and it's kind of accepted in society, whereas like if you actually take a step back and look, it's very similar to war and the attitudes that we have in war. And I think it's interesting, but I didn't sit there going the entire time, which is kind of what I expect from George Orwell, considering he wrote Animal Farm in 1984. So yeah. And then the other book I've just started reading like in the last few days was All the Crooked Saints by Maddie Stiefvater. I'm only 50 pages in at the moment, so I'm going to give you like my current thoughts. I don't know how these are going to change or whether my entire opinion on this book is going to change, but so far I have had a problem with this book in the fact that there's too many characters to keep track of. I'm kind of like, there's Daniel, there's Peter, there's like all of these names going everywhere, and I'm kind of struggling to keep up. Even though I have read 50 pages now, I kind of expected at this point to be over that and be like, okay, I know who the characters are now, let's keep going. But I'm actually struggling more to keep track of these characters than I was when I read War and Peace, which is saying a lot. At one point this afternoon I was considering just writing a list and like the character traits of all the characters so that I could keep track of them, which is what I did with War and Peace. But yeah, I think I'm going to read like another like 30 pages before I do that, because it's starting to click but it's not entirely there yet. One thing I do love about this book is the way it is written. Like all the lines are just perfect and beautiful. I've already put 2 sticky notes in, like 50 pages in, 2 sticky notes, that's a lot. I've had a lot of underlined passages because it's just beautifully written. And I want to read you one bit because this is like a whole page of reading that I'm going to do, so strap yourselves in. In his teens, he and his school friends had decided to steal a painting of Santo Nico di Ekatocha. Don't ask me to understand. Ekatocha from a church outside Alamosa. As the disguised child of Jesus gazed reproachfully from inside the frame, Daniel had carried the icon outside to where his friends waited in their truck. As he descended the few stairs, however, the painting grew heavier and heavier until he was compelled to put it down. His friends jeered, but they could not move it either. As Daniel had tried to decide if they should just leave the painting where it sat on the sidewalk, he had seen an inscription on the back, donated by an anonymous benefactor for all the crooked saints. Feeling suddenly and surprisingly heavy with the weight of both religious paintings and remorse, Daniel could not bring himself to abandon the painting to the elements his crime had exposed it to. He decided to wait with it until the priest returned in the morning, even if it meant confessing his theft. His friends abandoned him, but Daniel still waited. The wind began to kick up dirt, and still Daniel waited. A storm blew in and hail began to fall, and he covered the painting with his body to protect it, and still he waited. A storm blew in and hail began to fall, and he covered the painting with his body to protect it, and still he waited. As the hailstones pounded him, the frivolous and selfish nature of his childhood exploits hit him with equal pain. With each blow of the hail, he repented of another misdeed. The sky cleared, and Daniel found that he could easily lift the painting. A miracle. He had returned it to its place in the church, and it had been the saint of Bicco Rero ever since. He still had a divot in his shoulder from the first hailstone that had hit him that night, a physical reminder that regret stings. I just love that, and it's kind of it just shows you, like, the entire book is like that so far. And so I've been in love with it, and I love the prose, I love everything she writes. Like, this is my first ever Maggie Stiefvater book. I'm only 50 pages in, and like the way it's written is just beautiful, 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 beautiful. And so I want to keep reading, but I don't know if I can, if I'm gonna be confused by the characters for the rest of the book. So we'll see. I'm very happy with this book though. Despite the characters being very confusing, I am very, very happy to be reading this. Like, you know, when you just open a book and you know it's going to be a good one, that's how I feel about this one. So yeah, that's everything I've read recently. That's kind of the update, I guess. I don't know what else to say. That's kind of it. Thank you for watching. I hope I didn't bore you too much. I know this video is going to be a long one because I have 35 minutes of footage. So thank you for watching. I will see you in my next video. Just like, comment, subscribe. What books have you read recently? I don't know. I'll see ya. Peace out, fam.